Do you have any transgendery books? I am not the original poster. That is you, Bookmobile Lesbrarian. They posted in our libraries. Mood spoiler. Wholesome AF. Less than. This is a short and sweet post. Original post. October 3rd, 2023. A lovely woman at a senior living center I visit with the Bookmobile was chatting with me and told me that her nurse from last night and her grandchild were both transgendery, and asked if I had any books on the subject. But you probably don't have any books on that kind of stuff. I was quite happy to tell her that we have a large selection spread between the 4 libraries that the Bookmobile pulls from, and that I would bring several next time I visit for her to choose from. She lit up and thanked me profusely. Sometimes I really love this job. Smile. Relevant comments. I live in SW, Virginia. So when she started talking I was like, oh boy, here we go. Just smile and nod. I was so happy when she explained why she wanted the books. Quote, "What books do you suggest?" I will keep that book in mind. The Bookmobile services 2 rural counties, so I have a rotating 3-week schedule. I promised her I'd bring a selection of books next time I'm at that stop. I was thinking. Selfish by Chloe Schwenk, Beyond Magenta by Susan Cucklin, Love Lives Here by Amanda Yetta. Knox, You're in the Wrong Bathroom. Quote, and 20 Other Myths and Misconceptions About Transgender and Gender Nonconforming People by Laura Erickson Schroth, The Transgeneration by Ann Travers, What's the Tea? By Juno Dawson, Gender Queer by Maya Kobabe. I just looked it up and we have This Is How It Always Is in our system. I'll definitely bring a copy of that as well. She did mention she likes having fiction novels as well as non-fiction for when it all gets a little dry. I'm so lucky to have patrons like her. Thank you so much for your recommendation. Quote, funny note from Oop. When I started working as a librarian, I was an associate librarian for 3 years before getting the Bookmobile job. I was astonished to find that most of the raunchy Harlequin novels with half-naked models on the front were checked out by the sweetest, most mild-mannered elderly people. It always cracks me up. Get it, Grandma? Quote, update post. October 24th, 2023. 3 weeks later. So I showed the lovely patron with the transgender grandchild the LGBTQIA+ books I brought. And she looked at me confused and said, oh, I don't want to read about it. I have a live one. Turns out she didn't want books on LGBTQIA+. She was just wondering if we had books about it in the library for others to read and learn about it. And I misinterpreted it as a request still. She's happy we have so many different resources for people to use when educating themselves. So still a win. I just about burst a blood vessel trying not to laugh when she loudly said, I have a live one. You are an awesome grandma. Ma'am. 2 things. 1. Old folks who care deeply for their grandkids. Young people in general and beyond are why I still have hope for humanity. 2. OOP's practically an amalgam of the Magic School Bus and Reading Rainbow. And they haven't even realized it yet. When the BORU vote comes around, I expect this to be a strong contender in a lot of categories. This made my day. Blue heart. This was the wholesome reset saga I needed. Also, I've heard excellent things about Gender Queer. I'm going to look the other titles up now. ETA. According to NPR, Gender Queer became the most banned book in the US. So you know it must be powerful. What an excellent reason to add it to my reading list. When I was a teen, I read a book called Body, in my language, at least, about a trans boy discovering that there was a name for how he'd always felt about being AFAB. That was my first introduction to the idea that people could be assigned the wrong gender. It made me wonder about my own gender because I wasn't particularly stereotypically female. Presenting back then and then settle in the realization that I was in fact assigned correctly. As it does with cis people, because learning about it doesn't turn you trans or non-binary like some idiots fearmonger about. It shaped my entire reaction when it became a hotly discussed topic. Namely, WTF, why are we even discussing this? Let people be who makes them happy. Quote. I believe I would still be open-minded if I hadn't read it, because I'm under the umbrella in other ways. But having actually learned about the experience from the viewpoint of a trans person helped immensely. Queer literature is important. I'm glad OOP has such a good selection to offer. It's actually important that OOP specifies Southern Virginia, Maryland. The state directly to the north, where I am, is technically a southern state, but its politics are distinctly northern, i.e., liberal. Virginia is truly split in half, and there's a constant battle between southern and northern ideals. Northern Virginians are overwhelmingly liberal and Southern Virginians are conservative Southerners and old-school Southerners. Finding an old lady that's LGBTQ positive in Southern Virginia is truly a breath of fresh air. Generally speaking, I have a live one. I'm going to be thinking about this for a while. I don't want to read about it. I have a live one. Gran sounds feisty. I can absolutely imagine her correcting someone who acts the fool. I miss Boris like this. Librarian is a pretty cool superpower. Somewhere below invisibility but above talking to fish. This is why the bigots want to ban these books. So people can't educate themselves about the subject. They want to keep curious, well-intentioned people ignorant so you can fill their heads with hateful lies and prevent allies from forming. I just read a similar article on HuffPo about a person who sells women-positive themed books at book fairs. https www.huffpost.com entry Homeschool Conference Curriculum Girl Empowerment N6524457C9E4B0102E6962FD39. This was so wholesome. I really liked Trans Like Me, which is an autobiography of sorts by a non-binary person and their exploration of that aspect of themselves. I found it a really accessible read as someone who is cisgendered and hasn't experienced the same thoughts and feelings. This is way too wholesome for Reddit. When I started working as a librarian, I was an associate librarian for 3 years before getting the bookmobile job. I was astonished to find that most of the raunchy Harlequin novels with half-naked models on the front were checked out by the sweetest, most mild-mannered elderly people. It always cracks me up. Get it, Grandma? Quote, my former teacher who worked in a public library told us about an elderly lady who loved crime novels, but only if it involved murder. I have a live one. Amazing Grandparent, 99/10. Posts and people like these give me hope. Our species is not doomed yet. Wow, this was a touch of nostalgia. OOP said they are in SW Virginia and pull from 4 interconnected libraries. I know those libraries well. One of the best library systems I've ever experienced and my gold standard for what I expect from a library. Lived in the region as a single mom to 3 kids 2 decades ago, and we used the library all the time. Still friend with many of the librarians on Facebook. My kids thought the librarians were their extra grandmas. This should come with a diabetes warning because it's so sweet. What an adorable granny.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. EpicAriaCast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.